Hey, good morning. You can't even see Tiberias. Isn't that amazing? Look. Not even the high rises in Tiberias. I think just a little bit beyond the cliffs of Mount Arbel there you can't see much either. Probably if those cliffs were just as far more south, we wouldn't see them. Even here, these closer cliffs are also pretty hidden. Not hidden, but pale. Even this hill here, just much closer. It's amazing, isn't it? What a contrast to yesterday's sunrise. I think this has to do with dust. And by the way, I said the names of one or two of the plants wrong yesterday, and I don't have the answer in my hand right now available. I forgot to think about that. But please don't take me as a botanical expert. I did do a biology in high school for the leaving certificate in Ireland, and I was raised on a farm, so I know a lot about a lot of things, but a lot I don't know and a lot I have forgotten, and that's life. And you see, some days we have great sunshine and other days we have dullness and greyness. So when Doubting Thomas is doubting today, we can understand him. But then if you became a hardliner and you said, well, beyond that fog there's no Golan Heights that don't exist, well, that's just taking doubt a little bit too far, you know. We shouldn't confuse reality with our abilities only. If we have ability to see or to feel or to know, reality might just be a bit bigger than that. The mountains might really be there. So that's probably one of the challenges, right? To know who we are, what our limit is, because that also allows us not to make wild statements that don't have foundation. It looks like a lot of action under the water here. I just saw 4 or 5 circles, so there's probably a bunch of fish down there having their fun. Maybe they noticed me and they disappeared. So I also have some little housekeeping items for you this morning. But here we go. Here we have Divine Mercy Sunday. And usually we need mercy when things are very, very rough, very bleak. Things are very negative, very broken. Relationships very hurt. How much we need mercy. And divine mercy is the mercy in God's heart. And that was revealed particularly in the Paschal mystery of Christ. What a mercy it was for them to see the risen Lord again, for Thomas. And it's interesting that the key to Thomas recognizing Jesus was not some funny, fancy wonder, inexplicable wonder. It was to look at his wounds. Look at my wounds, Thomas. And that's the beginning of a big transformation for Thomas. Looking at Jesus' wounds. It wasn't about arguing with him. It wasn't about overpowering him. It wasn't about raising his voice. Just imagine Jesus when he said, look at my wounds. Yeah, look at my wounds. It must have been very serene, very gentle. With that little sapling of faith that was in Thomas's heart. That was called to grow. The tenderness of Jesus, the mercy of Jesus' heart, the gentleness with the broken, with the discouraged. It was a bit easier for the other disciples. They were together in their faith. They were together when Jesus came. Sometimes we step away from our church, we step away from the family, we step away from people. And it can be a bit tougher alone. Sometimes stepping away is an expression of an unhealthy independence. There's a good independence. There's a good self-providing in its own realm. But then there's also the type of independent motions and actions and phrases and statements and distancing that is more an expression of kind of selfishness, a little bit dark, a little bit rebellious, a little bit hurt, a little bit hurting. And that kind of isolation isn't good. But in that isolation, experiencing the isolation, we can desire to come back to our community. And that's very healthy. And when Thomas comes back, he has the opportunity to meet Jesus again, just like the others did, to meet him. The great value of community, of family life, of neighborhood, goodness with neighbors, of little associations, stamp collectors associations and neighborhood associations and trade associations, little professional associations for this type of profession, that type of profession, this type of hobby, that type of hobby. There's so many channels of socialization that are very, very important. They're part of the fabric of society, you know. Society just isn't a pile of garbage. Society is, it's very organized, like a plant, like a tree, like a flower. There's a togetherness and there's a role for different things. The roots are not the trunk and the leaves are not the stem of the tree and the flowers are not the leaves. And there's a togetherness that's healthy, that brings life. And all of our communities are like that. They're the ones that have the idea, and they're the others that have leadership, and there are others that have hard work because they have the health to do it, and there are others that are weak and don't seem to be contributing too much, but their presence is such a value. To see the world with mercy, with a love that's willing to redeem and repair. That's the way God sees the world. And looking at the wounds that Jesus suffered, you know, this was part of realizing Jesus' role in our community. He was one who took the blows for us. Look at this community here. And they're all busy doing their thing. But they're doing their thing that's a community thing. It's really amazing, isn't it? Look at the organization of this. Isn't this Queen Anne's lace? I think I just remember the name you taught me last year. It's not as fully in bloom yet. Maybe that's because the sun isn't out completely, or maybe it just needs more time. And here again we have the stems, and we have the leaves, and we have the flowers, and we have the buds, and they're at different times. To be present in community, to come back to community, to rebuild community that's broken. That's a great work of mercy. Great work of kindness, to renew old friendships. You know, the class reunions. Maybe somebody has had wounds since we graduated grade school or high school or college, or since we retired from that company, or was no longer teaching in that school. To go back and meet those people. We have no idea what our presence means to others. And we also have we sometimes underestimate a lot what others' presence means to us. to be present to each other. You see, every human being on this planet is meant to be a blessing for the whole of humanity, past and future. And that's the way it's going to be in heaven. Imagine the blessing when everybody is together. I was just thinking about my mother's siblings now. They've all left this world with my passing of my aunt a couple of days ago. Imagine their meeting in glory in heaven, and how they can rejoice in each other in God's presence and what he did through us. The Magnificat that they're all singing. And they went through very hard times. They were born in the 1920s. That was a very hard time right after First World War. So much destruction, so much mass migrations forced, so many bereavements, so many people killed in war, so many wounded, so many families bereft, destroyed, a spouse killed, so many people maimed. There was still a lot of hand-to-hand fighting in the First World War in the trenches. It was so brutal, you know. And then they came through the Depression. They were born before, all my parents' siblings were born before the Depression. And so their families raised them during the Depression. And then they walked into World War II. My mother was born in 1926. So she was 14 in 1940. She was born 5 days after Queen Elizabeth, okay? So she always was kind of proud of that. Anyway, it makes a huge difference in life when you're born 5 days after Queen Elizabeth, of course, and she knew that as well. Well, anyway, World War II, you know, and obviously World War II it impacted Ireland, of course, in many ways, but Ireland was not a war theatre, thanks be to God. We had political leadership that stayed clear of that, thanks be to God. That wasn't, ooh, there we got a huge one. A big, where are you gone, lady? That was a purple heron. So getting back to the community, rebuilding, we need each other. We need each other. And to look at the wounds, of Jesus, to look at the wounds of others, to open our heart for compassion and mercy. Thomas, look at my wounds. Put your finger in my wounds, the wounds of my hand. Put your hand in the wound of my side. It's an extraordinary passage that has inspired so much amazing art. And then we see also, obviously, in the readings, in the first reading, it's a whole different moment. The first reading is these apostles have been completely renewed, transformed. And people are getting healed just in their presence. They were so weak before, they couldn't see the sun rising. It was impossible. The sun couldn't rise. That was impossible because death has the last word. So there's no sunrise this morning in their lives. Not a sign of the sun. We don't even see the Golan. And they couldn't see the sun rising. It was impossible. And now, his same healing is healing the wounds of so many through them. Where they walk, people get healed. Where their shadow hits, people get healed. Transformation. And then we jump to the second reading and we see the incredible maturing of Christian reflection on the mystery of Christ. You know, it's a whole generation later, 2 generations later, in the Apocalypse, and the way they express their faith, those words, we see an amazing maturity. And this is a community that's very, very, very resilient in the midst of persecution. It's learning resilience. I would say it's learning resilience. And the book of the Apocalypse is to give great hope that we shouldn't be fazed by the assaults and attacks of those who don't believe. They're really also wounded. Those who attack people who don't believe or who believe differently than they do are wounded people. Because faith is so intimate in the sanctuary of the person, we can't force, we can't do violence. And sometimes Christians have made mistakes there because they didn't know Jesus' heart enough, or because they had other passions that were driving them, passions of dominion, of control. And history is a great teacher in that way. Look at the last phrase there of the second reading. I am the first and the last, the one who lives. Once I was dead, but now I'm alive forever and ever. I hold the keys to death in the netherworld. This is the introductory paragraph of the Apocalypse. So it's really amazing. In all kinds of different literature, there are expressions, poetry and apocalyptic literature and experiential accounts, testimonies, witnessing, so many different expressions in the New Testament of a community that's maturing in their experience of the risen Lord. And that's all mercy for the world. It's mercy for us. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love is everlasting. People, may you have a blessed Sunday today. Oh, housekeeping. So the next live stream will not be from Magdala unless something major happens today until this afternoon. And then we are going to have some days of downtime. I do not know exactly how my live streams for the next 10 days or so are going to work out. There can be quite a few surprises, so those of you who are in the WhatsApp group have that advantage, because I'll try to tip you off when I'm doing what I'm doing. It could be that I'll do some live stream morning sunrise stroll and chat. You have the link today of the readings, and in order to have the readings, which is the most important thing, you just have to click on the arrow and it'll bring you to the next day. But I will try to post each day something, even if it's just a picture. The idea is we have some community downtime. You know, we're talking about community. Well, we also need to have some community time where we leave our major tasks aside and are blessed by the Lord in more prayer and more relaxation and just that, you know, just a little bit of community life, family life, so to say. So people, thank you very much. God bless you. See you later, alligators. There we are. As you can see, it's getting a little bit warmer. Don't need warm clothes in the morning. God bless you.